I'm Kevin Wolf, president of Laney's Incorporated in Fargo Plumbing and Heating, and I was drawn to the Dorothy Day House by a friend I was serving on the Catholic school boards with, and he invited me to come and join the board and come see what they're all about. Up to that point, I really did not have a lot of knowledge about Dorothy Day House. However, my wife and children had gone over and served over at the Dorothy Day House and at the food pantry. So before I went over there to check out the Dorothy Day House, I didn't know a lot about it, but once I got over there, I instantly fell in love with their mission and the people that were helping to serve over there on a daily basis. The dedication I saw in both the workers and the tenants trying to get back up on their feet really struck me, and I guess the food pantry the food pantry part of it was really an eye-opener to see how many hungry families there were with single mothers with children going through the Dorothy Day House picking food out to try to feed their families. It was just really heart-touching, and so it drew me to want to become a member of the Dorothy Day Board.
I've thoroughly enjoyed working here, and I feel like I'm part of this larger-than-life family between the guests coming here and the wonderful staff that works here and everybody we get to meet that stays here or visits here. And I think this presence, the house here, the shelter, and the food pantry that we have really helps change the community around us. Homelessness sometimes has this horrible stereotype of, just dirty people, troublemakers, horrible drug users, people that, the lower level of society that people just don't want to deal with. And we really changed that here.
Dorothy Day is a necessity. There's people that really need this place, and it really is a cornerstone of the community here. And without Dorothy Day, I don't think people would have the opportunities to get out of the homeless situation. And that's why I am glad that Dorothy Day is here for us.
Hi, my name is Frank, and I am Dorothy Day.
James, I am Dorothy Day.
My name is Eric, and I am Dorothy Day.
My name is Kevin, and I am Dorothy Day.
I am William, and I am Dorothy Day.
My name is Amanda, and I am Dorothy Day.
Well, I was born into a family, a brother and a sister. At the time, my mom and my dad were still together. My mom divorced him when I was 3 years old. At that point, the house tension started to increase. My mother started becoming abusive, started disciplining us harshly. She called them beatings at the time. Well, my mom remarried when I was 6 years old to a guy from Minnesota. My stepdad, and he was an angry person. He had a lot of anger, and my mom started really picking up a lot of it. About the time that my sister left the home, the abuse started to escalate because my sister was no longer the main target for my mother and my stepdad. There were times where, I would have things thrown with the back of my head while running down the hallway trying to get away from my mother's wrath. The beatings would leave scars and blood and bruises all over my back, and my mom was always very self-conscious, making sure that I kept my shirt tucked in, because she didn't want to see the church people. She didn't want the church people to see the abuse. I mean, she had to maintain her image. But that continued for many, many years. It got worse. My mother started, going into crazier and crazier fits. Just altogether, it was torture for me. Not being able to go swimming because my mom doesn't want people to see my backside. It was horrible. I missed out on so much because of that.
Last Sunday, almost a week ago, I was just south of Watford City out selling some jobs, and I broke down about midnight. And I began walking. I walked all night in the cold, and I didn't have good shoes. And by the time I got into town, I had gotten a pretty bad case of frostbite on my right foot. And I have a blister on my foot about the size of a softball, and they said that I need to keep it warm for 4 to 6 weeks. And so I took the train to Fargo. And the VA social worker hooked me up with the place to stay at the Dorothy Day House, which is crucial because my foot is in pretty bad shape. I'll be going for surgery on Tuesday. It all went south just because of that one little injury. I don't know where my truck is. My job's gone, and my only focus right now is trying to keep my foot from being amputated. It's been a very, very nice place. They feed you, and I'm able to get around a little bit, taking the bus on crutches. And I'm glad that the VA will take care of me. And I was just south of Watford City, and I was just walking, and I knew my feet were cold, but I didn't think they were that cold. And here I am, stuck in Fargo. So hopefully everything will be alright. My family's concerned about me and try to help. And I'd like to get better and just get back out to work. So I'm just sitting here taking it easy, and they've been very nice to me. And everyone gets along pretty good. Hope to get back on my feet soon.
I was born in Chicago. Moved to Minnesota when I was 2. Went to high school in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. And I came to Moorhead for college. How I ended up in the Dorothy Day House was I was in school, went through a little bit of a personal crisis, and my grades suffered because of it. And I got suspended. once I got suspended, I was living in the dorms at the time, and I had to move out immediately. You can't stay in the dorms if you're not enrolled, so I didn't have a place to go. I don't have any contact with my family. My friends that I'm close with, they're already living with people, so there was no option there. Plus, no money to get down to the cities where they are. And didn't have a job, no income, so I was pretty much just gonna be out sleeping outside in the middle of winter.
When I was 15, my mom lost her custody rights due to the child abuse that I explained earlier. I got moved into a group home, lived there for a few years. Never really learned, how to be independent. I was always dependent on somebody, whether it was dad, foster parents, group home. So when I turned 18, I moved in with my dad, and I lived with him for a while. And things quickly went south, and I ended up on the streets. Not much places to go. I went to a vocational school, got some training there. Pretty much was still floating around. Not many places to live for me. And that's when I got charged with a felony, and that's really when all the doors slammed shut, and I had no hope. In my mind, there was no hope. So, I served some time in prison for, the crime involved, and I got out, and, just trying to find a place was so hard. For instance, I couldn't live anywhere else in the state except where I'm living now because there are no homeless shelters anywhere else. So I moved to Fargo, and luckily, someone helped me get into the Dorothy Day House, and everything has made a turn for the better because these people give you a boost, and they teach you the life skills that I wasn't taught when I was a child. It's easy for me to say at this moment, I am Dorothy Day.
I first came out west. I had a buddy from the Army who I met, and in Wyoming, me and him worked on a ranch together. And then just by reading the newspapers, I heard there was a lot of work out in Williston Basin, so I decided to come out there for that. And I got a job, kind of a salesman, picking up jobs for a pipe inspection company. It was this man's dad that did it, and so I go down to different rigs and try to sell a job, and if when we work it together, we'd inspect the drill pipe and make sure it's good to go down in there. And we were living out of our trucks in a camper, and just it was kind of interesting. It's the Wild West out there. It's like Sturgis motorcycle rally with trucks, and there's a lot of people out there living in trucks, living in Walmart parking lot, and I just like the excitement. Really, it's most people are gonna leave broke, just like the 49 miners, but just like the wide open spaces and out west, and everyone's got a gun, and just a nice place to be. Just cold, very cold in the winters. And I was surprised that I got frostbite. I'm kind of embarrassed. I hope it feels much better though.
I don't feel like I've given up on life like a lot of people have that's in this situation. I feel like I'm in this situation because, like I said, I needed to learn something. And what I learned here is not just helping myself, it's going to help other people eventually, because I don't know, I think I want to take this learning experience and really do something with it. Now that I know what that is, I just feel that that's why I'm here. I don't know, I don't mean to be all like esoteric on everyone, but I just feel like there's a purpose for everything, and my purpose for being in this situation is to benefit other people, not just myself. But before I get to that stage, I have to help myself, and in order to do that, gotta get a job, gotta get back on my feet, and that's what I'm working on now. And then eventually I see myself 3-4 years from now graduated, out doing something good in the world, and helping people that, you know, have given up hope, because if you give that up, I mean, you can't expect anyone to really help you if you don't want to help yourself. So that's pretty much it.
On a daily basis, it's wake up at 5:45, do our chore at the shelter, and then it's from 7 in the morning to 6 at night, the wandering starts, you know, finding things to occupy your day, whether it be soup kitchens, sitting around at the day labor halls hoping you'll be picked to go do some menial spot labor. Usually it's a lot of sitting. I've been lucky. I've gotten out on a couple small jobs this week, you know, but you know, there's only so much time you can sit in the library, and it's just this day of pure limbo. Meanwhile, you're walking down the street, you know, and I can be dressed nice, or what I think is nice, and I still get these looks, you know, as I stand, you know, waiting for the crosswalk to open up. You know, the people in the cars are just, the stares are just heinous. You know, there are a lot of days I want to explode. You know, I just want to explode, and you know, I don't know what to do. The stress of life is just, you know, just being shunned, and you don't have anywhere to go. And I'm homeless, and I don't drink, and I don't do drugs anymore. And I'll tell you, there are not a lot. I make a lot of homeless friends either, being like that, you know. So the isolation and the loneliness that I feel is probably much greater than the average person, you know, because they got their drinking buddies and are into that routine, you know. And I know these are all choices that I made. That's another very defeating thing is the daily reflection of this is choices that I've made, and it almost seems at some point in life we cross the line and we're not allowed back.
Yeah, it was 2005, 2006. I came, left my husband with my kids in the middle of the night, came to Fargo, tried to take care of them, all of us. You know, when you got kids and you're a woman, they give you welfare, they give you help, so it wasn't so bad, plus I worked. But then my mother-in-law called and wanted me to go back and give her son another chance and take care of her, because she didn't even trust her own children to not steal from her and stuff. So I was her caregiver full-time for 6 months, and then when she passed away, my husband became very abusive again, and I left. I went to jail because he said I tried to kill him, and that's what he did to me. And then they found out he lied, so they let me go, and I left state and came back here and went to all these different grooming shops to pursue my grooming, and did very well at it. Took over a business. I had a business for 3.5 years, taught myself how to do this, saw my kids when I could, paid my child support, had all the money in the world, and basically blew it on drugs and alcohol and supporting me and an abusive boyfriend.
Things are a scary, trying time for us. You know, I see communities both here and in Boulder and all the communities in between, that this is not a problem just in Boulder. This is a nationwide problem where the homeless have literally been ousted from society. I mean, why else would somebody sleep on a park bench or a homeless shelter? I mean, it's far beyond just a need for a place to stay for a night. There are deeper issues than a bowl of soup and a mattress at a homeless shelter. There are much deeper issues that America America needs to recognize and look into and find out what the hell is going on here, people. What the hell? And I think American citizens should wake up to that fact, and instead of hate on the homeless, maybe go, what in the hell is going on with our country that this has to happen? You know, as much pride and patriotism as we have of the greatest nation on earth, or whatever that humdo is all about, people should be going, no, this is atrocious. This should not be happening in America the beautiful.
Found out my ex-boyfriend hung himself on the 30th day of being sober. And I just didn't understand why that had to happen, and I thought maybe if I drank I'd die too. But I didn't, and I laid in that hospital bed 4 days unconscious, and I woke up and I couldn't see and I couldn't walk. And I asked for help. I called Southeast and they put me into ACS, where I healed for 2 weeks and they said I could go back into the women's shelter, but when I got there they didn't let me in because of my felony. And I stood out on the street with a big box of clothes and I could barely walk, and I called my mom and I said, please let me, heal. And I went back to my mom's house, and my mom's an abusive alcoholic, abused me as a child and doesn't really care if I drink. And I started drinking again, and they kicked me out. They had the cops come and take me out because they said that I was stealing from them to drink, and I wasn't. I pawned my daughter's iPod so that I could feel a little bit of independence and get a pack of cigarettes or something, and ended up at Gladys Ray. The cops took me there, and they let me stay there, and I've been there ever since. And it's just getting harder and harder every day. I almost drank today. It was right there in front of me, and I told myself, I said, I don't want to do this to myself. It's a struggle every day to wake up and not know what to do with yourself all day long. I've lost everything, my family, my children, and trying to just keep some self-respect. I try and stay clean. I try and do my hair, do my makeup. I try and be nice, and I try, all these different things, but I hurt so badly inside that sometimes I lash out and I drink, and that's when I end up back in jail, and I'm just like scared of that happening to me again. I don't know. I just really wish that people would take a look around them sometimes, and instead of being mean and dismissing family and kicking people out when they're down, they just maybe take a minute, talk to them. I sit with a guy in the park every once in a while because everybody's just forgotten about him, and I feel that way too. I told him today, I said, you're on the same level as me. You're by yourself, you're hungry, you're sitting by yourself, you don't know where to go, you don't know what to do, and it just feels like everybody's just forgotten about you. So I'm just hoping that I can keep up as well as I have been doing with not drinking and keeping my job, paying my child support, because they love to put me in jail for that. And it's a vicious cycle of just alcohol abuse, jail, halfway houses. All these people have all the same story as me. Every woman I talk to, everybody, same thing. The only difference right now between me and them is they use drugs and alcohol throughout the day to occupy their time and to something to do, I guess. But I don't want to do that.
Then you look at the percentage of the homeless that have served this country you know, in the armed forces and our veterans of even wars, that these people can drive down the street and even drive their car, you know, and listen to what they want on the radio and watch what they want on TV, those freedoms that we have in America. Here's a guy on the corner of their street with cardboard, you know, and he fought and in some ways died, you know. In a lot of us out here, there's been a part of us that has just died, and we live this mere existence, you know, this wandering, you know. Almost seems like a road to nowhere sometimes. Just a road leading to nowhere. And you wake up every morning and go again, you know, I gotta face this again. And there doesn't, on a lot of days, seem like there's a whole lot of hope in sight. You know, some days you almost curse while you woke up, you know, when they're waking you up at the shelter and you're like, here we go again, you know, and you're doing everything you need to do. You're getting your applications in, you're meeting with your case manager, you're meeting with your counselor. You know, hell, you don't even have bus money to get to these appointments, so you're walking in whatever temperatures, whether it's 20 below or 96, and I'll tell you, either or sucks when you're walking across town, you know, trying to get to an appointment. You miss appointments too, you know, and then they condemn you for missing an appointment, but they made an appointment right at the same time your meal at Salvation Army is. You know, and though a housing appointment might be to some people pretty important, your food for that day is more important, is going to be more important. And so you got to prioritize on what, you know, do I want to do an interview where I might get housing 6 months down the road, or I'm pretty damn hungry right now, do I need to go to the soup kitchen and eat, you know? And those kind of choices, those are the choices that you got to make on a moment by moment by moment basis. You know, sometimes just trying to find a quiet spot just to sit down and be alone without harassment by the cops is a chore in itself. You think you could just sit on a park bench, but you know, you're there for an hour, the cops are going to run your ID and see if you're drinking, you know, harass you. You're like, you know, families that have been there all day throwing a frisbee, but you're not allowed to sit under a tree and just read a book, you know, and not hurting anybody. You know, it's you know, it's a hard reality when you realize you're in a society that doesn't want you there, and there's no way out of it. You know, they don't want you there, but there's nowhere to go. That's a real tough cookie to swallow sometimes.
New Year's Day a year ago, woke up a mess, broken, empty. Wondering where my life was headed. Ended up calling a priest and saying that I was in trouble. And they wondered if it was drugs, alcohol. I said, it's my life. Maybe it's the drinking. He asked if I had been to AA. I said, well, why would I do that? Then people would know I'm not perfect. So I struggled for a while and ended up going back and talking to a priest. And then realized that the journey I was on goes way back farther. I had an abortion many years ago. And it was my hidden secret. I lost my identity. My soul was empty. It was broken. So, after that, I was going to get married. We had this bond. So we ended up getting married for all the wrong reasons. There was no special bond. It was a broken mess to begin with. That marriage lasted 3 years, and the whole time, all I really wanted was to fill that hole. I just wanted a baby. So that marriage ended, and right away, leaned on someone else, trying to fill that void, looking for happiness. Really, all I wanted was to have a baby. In fact, I remember saying to this person, I don't want to get married. I just want a baby. And through my brokenness, he took me in. He did have 2 kids. And I embraced that, wanted to be a mother. Got married. Little did I know I was going to have a hard time conceiving. Went through 9 years of infertility, month after month, broken, just feeling like I was being punished for the sin of my abortion. I remember my mom driving around with a bumper sticker that said, "Abortion kills," a constant reminder, a slap in my hand, you did wrong. The guilt and the shame ate me. Satan loved it. Anyways, at that point, I couldn't bear any more disappointments, so adoption was the way we went. And that was a long process also, you know, getting interviews and traveling, and ended up being at the birth of my son. It was beautiful. And then 4 years later, I gave birth to another son. But through all of this, I was lonely. I filled all of my needs. My passion was my kids. I was filling that hole. But my marriage was empty. So the priest suggested, I said, this whole abortion, it's still weighing on me. I never forgave myself. So he suggested to go to Rachel's Vineyard. And that's where this whole big journey started. Went there, and it's for women that have gone through an abortion. It's a spiritual weekend. And it was very healing. It was right before then that I actually finally told my mother about the abortion. And they were going to have a memorial service the last day of this, and you could invite friends or family. And my sister and mother offered to come down, and I said, no, that's okay. I just need to go through this. My mother drove. It was in the middle of the winter, 8 hours, and slept in her car when it was 20 below, and was there for the memorial service. What a mother. When I came back from that retreat, or weekend, I was kind of all over the place, spiritually. And for years, my mom and my sister had been praying and wanting me to go to Medjugorje, place where Mary has been appearing to visionaries. And I was just, oh no, if you want to send me to Italy, I'll go there. And don't be pushing that religion stuff down me, you know. And when I got back, I called my mom and I said, I think I might be ready to go. And she said, well, maybe November. And I said, no, I think I'm ready to go now. And lo and behold, there was 2 openings, and within 10 days I was off to Medjugorje, Bosnia. And amazing. Well, I guess I didn't know really what to expect. I thought I'd be putting on my little white hat, sun hats, and going for morning coffee. Nobody told me that you walk down these paths every day, saying the rosary that I hadn't said in years, and going to church every day. Nobody told me about the outdoor confessionals that they had in 20 different languages, and the lines were long, and went there, and it was amazing. I had a confession there, and it was like 45 minutes long, and they have 40,000 people there. It was the first time that I truly felt forgiven and free. So I came back from Medjugorje and had this video on Dorothy Day, and I picked it up and I thought, I'm going to watch this. Ended up watching it, I think, 5 times, and it was amazing. I saw my life. Dorothy Day. I had an abortion. She loved hats. She lost herself through a relationship. She was empty. She was walking the beaches, just searching, trying to fill this void, and broken. So she came to the church, and I was so drawn by that movie. I found myself driving past Dorothy Day after Mass, kind of having a little pull to go in there, not sure what I was supposed to do. Eventually, I ended up driving in the parking lot, walked in, and someone said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Well, yeah. I think I'm supposed to do something here." I'm not sure what, but it looks like you need flowers out front. And whoever I visited with said, yeah, you can do that, but normally it's a doctor that does that. And I said, oh, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. Maybe that isn't what I'm supposed to be doing here. I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to cook. I wasn't sure, and I wasn't sure who I was talking to, if it was someone that worked there. And they said, well, why don't you give us your name and we'll have someone call you. So he sat down and asked me what my name was, and I said, Dorothy Day II. He looked at me, and I said no. And anyways, I ended up planting the flowers on the front deck of Dorothy Day. And after church, many mornings, I would come over and water them, say my little peace rosary while I was there. A lot of times I'd have coffee or tea with the guys there. Always invited them to Mass, you know, for some good spiritual food that we all need. I only had one taker so far.
Father, what love has done, and love defied 1,000,000 scholars, 1,000 dreams of 40 fathers. Come on, baby, look what love has done. We're sailing on this ship I borrow, and all our dreams come true tomorrow. Come on, baby, look what love has done. Has done. I say, has done. Today is love. Someday my love will be as one, and the prophets whisper He say he found his tongue. So go on, my love, your time has come. With your sails of white wings and catch your ocean long. And love to follow 1,000,000 scholars, 1,000 dreams of 40 fathers. Come on, baby, look what love has done. We're sailing on this ship I borrow, and all our dreams come true tomorrow. Come on, baby, look what love has done. It's done. I say it's done. Today it's love.
Dorothy Day was born November 8th in the late 1890s, and her family, she was raised in name Episcopalian, but not really a devoutly religious family. Then in her younger years, she spent a lot of time, she went to school for journalism, and then she kind of got into the crowd that was very much like the communists, very much for the workers' rights. And then at one point in time, the group that she got into, she met a man who they fell in love, and she ended up having an abortion after she told him that she was pregnant, and he didn't want the baby at all, and she really wanted to stay with him, but she had the abortion so that she could stay with him, and that really tore her up. One of the things that was interesting about Dorothy Day as well was she was a pacifist, and she wasn't afraid to speak out on things, and she wasn't afraid to actually put her beliefs into action. Like if she was against something and she knew that she was breaking the law, but she believed in her mind that, and her heart, that what she was doing was right, she would risk going to jail. I can't remember how many times she went to jail, but there are many letters from her time in jail, and even she died in 1980. So when she died, she was about 82 years old. I think she was even imprisoned when she was like 78. because, yeah, she wasn't gonna let her age say, no, I've done enough, and
She was definitely in her 70s. And I think that farm workers, Cesar Chavez action that she did with the farm workers, I think that was her last arrest. When I was in junior high, which would have been like 85, I guess, right around that, my church youth group came to Dorothy Day House to visit, and I think we brought food or something, and I just remember being really kind of shocked about people living there that were homeless and guys, and just the whole way the place was run. It just seemed like kind of like in some ways it seemed like a zoo, in some ways it seemed like a regular house. It wasn't like it really wasn't like what I expected it to be, that's for sure. It was more human than, I wouldn't have put that kind of term to it then, but it was more human than I would have expected it to be. And I think in the years since then, working in other shelters and working in other Catholic worker communities, I've met guys that have stayed here in the recent past, and they still said that about the house, that they were treated really well at Dorothy Day House, that they were treated like human beings. And I think that's one of the things that Dorothy Day always said, is that these are, our brothers and sisters, and we should treat them, we should treat them as Christ. And I think that this house still has that philosophy and still acts that way. And I've been only impressed by the staff and the director and how they deal with the people that come to their door. So, Sister was saying it was kind of a community, more in the traditional Catholic worker sense. And now it's quite a bit different in that way. There's still, like I said, there's still the loving atmosphere. But, it's a nonprofit that's growing. And it's acquired a food pantry, and it's had to revision itself in the community. And that's happened in other communities too, where, the Catholic worker generally is a small organization, run with volunteers. No one gets paid. A minimal amount of money comes in, and basically all that is spent on the people that live there. And this is something quite a bit different than that. And it's not bad. It's not better or worse, I don't think. But it's just the way that this house had to grow. The people that were in charge at whatever time made that decision that the best way we can do our work is by going this route. And that's the way it went. And I think what we have today is a great organization. It's it's top notch, I think.
Today we're out here helping out with the Dorothy Day Food Pantry, and we're doing a food drive to help out with those in our community that have been able to support us through the years, and obviously reaching out to the community members that aren't being able to be supported at this time. Really appreciate Sonia and the folks at the Dorothy Day House, including Walmart, in this function. I've been fortunate enough to be on the Dorothy Day Board of Directors for the last 6 months and been made aware of the need that is in our community. Unfortunately, there's a critical need in the Fargo-Moorhead area, and we're just trying to do what we can here at Walmart to really help that cause, support the folks in our community that really need that at this point in time. And been real fortunate to be part of this, and hopefully today this will be our first annual. It'll be something we'll be able to move forward with. Sonia's been a great instrument in our community to be able to raise that awareness, and hopefully with our customer, we're blessed with very, very giving, generous customers, and we're hoping for a big event today.
Welcome to Walmart. Enjoy your shopping today. Hi.
Hello. Find everything all right?
I did, thank you.
Is there any way you'd like this made?
No, just all together is fine.
Hey, wow. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Holy cow.
Good start to the day,
Yeah.
right?
That is so good.
Thank you. You know, that's just a cross-section of what our community is. Obviously, we have very generous customers, and to be able to start the day with such a generous donation is outstanding. So we're looking forward to having a good day, and it's customers like that that truly make a difference.
My name is Jay. I've been caring for about 6 years. I'm the food drive coordinator. Today we'll collect up about 17,000 pounds of food, which is about a week's worth over at the food drive across the country. Carriers will be doing this, and I'm going to say they pick up about, well, last year, over the 20 years that they've been doing the 20 plus years they've been doing the food drives, they collected over 1 billion pounds of food for food banks across the country. And what we'll have is we pass out bags, and folks will leave them at their mailboxes, and we pick them up, put them in our satchels, and load them in our vehicles and take them off to the food pantry. So today on my route, I'll pick up probably about 300-400 pounds of food. I'll walk 14 miles, deliver to about 500 houses, and deliver about 500 magazines and about 12 to 1,500 letters today. And this is just the food off of my route that they've collected about 3/4 of the route so far. And during the food drive, a lot of the carriers will have their family members out with them on the routes, collecting up, assisting the carriers so that there's no additional, so that we can fulfill our goal of no cost to the Postal Service for us picking up food and serving the community. We build a lot of confidence and a rapport with our customers. We see their houses every day. We've had carriers in town call 911 reporting fires. Probably saved a couple, 2-3 houses within the last just 2 or 3 years. We've had people pass out on sidewalks that we've called 911 on. You know, oftentimes, and in particular with the senior citizens, oftentimes we're the only person that they'll see all day. And so it's not where we spend a lot of time chatting with them, but we do check up on folks and kind of welfare checks, because we're the person that most visible to them every day. And when we see things out of order, I was delivering in one community and I noticed a door open, and the house had been vacant for a while, and I called back to the supervisor, and they notified the police, who came and checked out the house, make sure that there was nothing wrong. And so, you know, we help out in the local community too, not just delivering the mail, but also looking out for our customers' interests. Okay, let me think here. Yeah, our food drive is one of a couple that are done within the community. The letter carriers do their food drive once a year. The Boy Scouts, I believe, have 2 food drives a year. But one of the important things is that, you know, our food drive will provide the food pantry with enough food for about a week. And while we raise the awareness, there's still the need for folks to donate to the food pantry throughout the year. In addition to just the food drives that the letter carriers and the Boy Scouts and some of the other community organizations do each year.
Welcome to the Dorothy Day Food Pantry. Here we serve people who are low income or experiencing poverty. And in 2011, we distributed over 614,000 pounds of food to over 8,000 households. And this year we've experienced a 12% increase already. And the majority of the food that we distribute is donated by community members. About 75% is donated, and that comes from area food drives like the Postal Carriers Food Drive, Build Dome, Boy Scouts, food drives like that. We also get donations from local grocery stores, food that's reaching expiration, so typically that is some dairy products, bread and pastry items, and a lot of produce. And we also receive donations every single day from individuals and families throughout the Fargo-Moorhead community, local businesses, faith communities, and schools and colleges. And then we supplement donations by obtaining food from Great Plains Food Bank at a reduced cost. So it's about 18 cents a pound shared handling fee. And with that, we typically have to purchase perishable items like dairy and meat products.
I'm Mark Strobel, and I'm the pastor of St. Mark's Lutheran Church. We've had the opportunity to host a homeless health clinic for the past almost 9 years now. For us, it's been a natural extension of our ministry. Our congregation has a real commitment to ministry downtown, for caring about the people who live downtown. And so when we had the opportunity to welcome the clinic in the building, we said yes without a second thought. And for the last 9 years, it's been a great thing for us. We hope that it's been equally good for the people who've come here. You know, the reason that we've done it is because there are lots of biblical stories about welcoming the stranger, examples of how by welcoming strangers you've entertained angels, or even more clearly how when you care for people who are hungry or sick and in need, you are caring for Jesus himself. So that's been a part of it. But I think for me, the real reason that we do this, caring for people in Jesus' name, reaching out to them, is because the homeless who come here are people who often don't get a sense of dignity and welcome just for who they are. And we want somehow to be able to convey to them that as people created in God's image, they're welcome here, no matter their circumstances. And it's just because of who they are that we want to be able to care for them. You know, one of the nice things about having the clinic here is that we've been able to develop relationships with people who are regulars over the course of the 9 years. And members of the congregation have come to expect that when they're here on a weekday morning, they'll see homeless residents of the community in the building and get a chance to interact with them. There's a weekly meeting here on Tuesday mornings, and one of the people who comes every Tuesday is an 85-year-old member of this congregation, long time member of this congregation. And one of the Tuesdays that he came here, there were some police cars outside. There'd been an incident in the clinic, and the staff had called the police. The police cars had showed up, were in the parking lot dealing with the person, and when the member of the congregation came into the building and up for his meeting, he was a little put off by what was going on outside, but not put off by the incident with the homeless person. He was mostly upset that the police car had taken his parking spot. And so people here have simply come to welcome the homeless residents in the community to our building and know that they belong here, and in some ways belong here more than squad cars belong in parking lots. There's a member of, or there's a a person who had been at the clinic regularly for a number of years would come in on weekday mornings, grab a cup of coffee downstairs, read the paper, do the crossword puzzle in ink, and then after he was done with that would go outside and have a cigarette on a back step outside the church. He'd been doing that for a number of years and had gotten used to the routine and schedule of people around here, and so he'd know about when in the morning I was going to show up. I'd get out of my car and we'd visit with one another, and I'd go in and he'd finish up a smoke. Well, there was one morning when I was late. I'd been at a meeting and had pulled up later than I normally did, and Charlie was out in the back having his cigarette and saw me pull up and looked at his watch and raised his arm up and pointed at his wrist as a way for him to say to me, "You're late for work." So I love the fact that the people that came here and have come here through the years have in some ways developed relationships with us. And in some ways it feels like we're a family here, that we all belong in this building.
Fill out my paperwork, and I'll go over this stuff real quick here with you. Okay, this is our only one that has two sides, and then you would make sure you sign the bottom here. This one, do you have insurance?
Yes.
Okay, so here, and you sign those. And this is an education sheet that everybody needs to fill out, and you sign the bottom when you get done with that. And this is very important. This is how we get our grant. So if you would fill out all these papers, and then we make sure we have an emergency contact. And this is our sliding fee scale, and everybody has to be on this, even if you have insurance or not. So I need you to fill out this, your income, and then sign and print down there. And the last two are just for you to read, okay? And there's coffee if you'd like. Okay?
Appreciate it.
You bet.
How are you?
Okay.
So, I hear you've been having some issues with your medications.
Yeah.
What do you think the problem is?
The problem is probably I'll maybe forget it about taking them and the right time, you know. But since by the nurse told me before I used to take it by the cap, by the little bottle. Now you put, separate them and the box. So I think that'd be a whole lot easier.
Yeah, to help.
Once I make it a habit, yeah.
Let us help you set up the medications,
Right.
so you know when to take them, and so now you know not to ever take them out of your bottles,
Right,
except the one that you're going to take with your snacks, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That one's really important right now because I think you haven't been taking it, and I think it's contributing to the worsening of your labs right now. Of course, your dialysis doctor is pretty concerned about you taking your medications. She even thought that maybe you were drinking or doing drugs, and I reassured her that you were not. That's not who you are. She's worried about the extra fluid you've put on and the weight you've gained.
See, that's my little problem there. I'm trying to control that because every time when you get a meal or eat something, have a snack, especially when the weather is hot out there, you need to drink something cold.
I know the fluid restriction has been hard on you, and we straightened that out so you know how much fluid you can have now, right? It's a little bit more than you had originally thought. I would like to see you visit with our dietitian. You've seen Mary Larson before, right?
Yes.
She can help you with a low-fat diet and something we call a renal diet. The kinds of foods that would be best for you to eat with your kidney failure.
Okay, that sounds great, yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and make that referral, and I'm going to have Josie set up that appointment, okay?
Right, yeah.
All right, my name is Kim Sieb. I'm a licensed social worker. I am the program director / case manager at Homeless Health Services, which is a program of Family Healthcare Center. Family Healthcare Center is a federally qualified community health center. They get a grant to provide sliding fee scale health care to individuals who are underinsured or uninsured. Along with that grant, we also get a specific grant, which was part of the McKinney Act back in the late 80s, to provide health care for individuals who are considered homeless. Homeless, for our purposes, is very flexible. We have part of the focus or requirement of our program is that we work with our patients on trying to get them involved in housing or getting them off the streets and getting them safe. We provide primary health care to homeless individuals, which is not easy. I always compare us to cardiologists. We're the experts in providing health care to individuals who are not in circumstances that make managing chronic illness or health issues very well. We have a number of the common diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, mental illness, and substance abuse, that are associated with living the difficult life of being homeless or on the street. We are mandated by our grant to address substance abuse and mental health issues. We don't provide those services on site, but we do have relationships with the service providers in the community so that our patients can access appropriate health care or appropriate care for their substance abuse and mental health issues. We focus a lot on housing. We have been very successful in the last couple of years with getting individuals into housing since Fargo and Moorhead opened their Cooper House and Gateway Gardens, which are modeled on the Housing First model. We've been very successful in getting individuals into those programs along with the wraparound services, and we stay involved with those individuals as long as they're in supported housing. We don't want them to lose their health care just because they've gotten housed. They still have some very specific healthcare needs because of their homeless status. So we continue to work with them. So we have a number of individuals now who we provide ongoing case management for and are in housing, and we help them with whatever it takes to help them maintain their housing. And so that's become a real focus of ours. We still obviously do emergency things. Yesterday, the young guys that were in from Washington State that hadn't eaten, we were able to get them some food and help them find a place to spend the day. The youngest one had injured his back, and we were able to coordinate with other service providers to find a place for them to spend the day and rest and eat and get what they needed as far as appropriate clothing for the weather. They had been sleeping outside for a couple of days once our overflow sheltering had stopped. So we do a lot of things that are not considered health care but are very, very important for these individuals to be able to manage their health care.
Well, as part of my medical practice here, I came to the house and would see patients here, or Father Bill. I knew when he called me that something was wrong with somebody, and he felt that I could help either by, and of course he would send the person down to my office, or I would stop at the house to see somebody. My office at that time was about 3 blocks south of Dorothy Day House on 8th Street in Moorhead. And so it was convenient for the house and for Father Bill and for the patients to come to see me, or I could easily come here. And as a result of my association with the Dorothy Day House, I ultimately ended up on the board of directors of the Dorothy Day House. And at one time, I think I was chair or something, some similar position on the Dorothy Day board. But it's been a great association, and I think Christ admonished me to care for my fellow man. And if I have the knowledge and the ability to help somebody, I have to use it. Because God is going to call me to account for it someday, you know. Did you help people or didn't you? And I'm not too far from finding out what the accounting is going to be at 92 and a half. So, anyway, it's been a great association with the Dorothy Day House and with Father Bill and the wonderful people on the staff who have given their time and lives for very little monetary compensation. But I was on the staff of 3 hospitals in town here in Fargo-Moorhead, St. Luke's, St. Ansgar, and St. John's Hospital. And by the way, they've taken the saints out of the hospital in town. I hope not the saintliness, but I sort of miss the old saint hospitals. When I was in family practice, I worked in St. Anthony's Hospital in Monoma, Minnesota, and in Crookston I worked at St. Vincent's Hospital. So I had the privilege of working in hospitals with saints' names and hopefully with saints' motivation. Anyway, that's just natural that if you're going to work in a saint's hospital, you should try to act a little bit like a saint. Adjust my halo, would you please?
Homelessness in Fargo is vicious, but in a different way than bigger cities. It's because of the climate. In the winter months, if you're in the street, if you don't know how to survive the cold, you ain't gonna make it. You know, you gotta leave. And then 99% of the time, that's what happens in this area. But I'm from here. I know what it takes to survive in that cold weather. But had we had not such a nice winter this winter, a lot of them people that are in the West working now that can't get jobs lost their jobs for whatever reason, would have came here, and a few did. But if it had been a lot colder, they'd have been here too in groups. That's another totally different subject.
I was adopted into a pretty well-to-do family, but they had issues. At 16, I was literally thrown out on the street by them with nothing. I hitchhiked out to California, found drugs, found alcohol, 30 years of traveling and homelessness. And yeah, be it. Prison. Found Fargo 2.5 years ago. By that time, I'd sort of cleaned up off the drugs and alcohol, sort of. I was getting to the point I'm at now, but I realized Fargo had something here. It didn't have the street activity, the street crime, the things that I could just fall into real easy, and there were a lot of resources on my disability to get a affordable place to live. And ended up 1.5 years ago checking into Dorothy Day, and thought that it would be a long process to get an apartment, and I think I was there 3 weeks and moved into my apartment and still have it today. And you know, things are sort of getting better. Sort of. It's pretty hard to live when you have a $600 a month income and you pay rent. It's not difficult, so I find I'm still healthcare for the homeless and Salvation Army and No Life for meals, and that's sort of a hard life because you're torn between, you know, two things. I think that's the hardest, is they give you this hope of by getting housing you're just going to be free from all this and everything's better, and it's kind of hard sometimes, you know, because you realize that I don't know if we ever walk away from this, you know, those that have been out here on the streets forever. I mean, because getting a job is a near impossibility. I was just down in Gillette, Wyoming, walking into every drilling company that's up in Williston. All their offices are in Gillette, Wyoming, with the comment of, how old are you? How many jobs you had in your life? And the interview was done. Done. You're done.
Homeless has got a large stigma. everybody thinks when you're homeless, it's, oh, he's a drunk or he's a drug addict. That's bullshit. That is total bullshit. You know, a lot of them have mental health problems or abuse, you know, that's a big one with women. You know, they get you out of the situation. I get kind of upset about it.
You know, those of us that have been out here a long time, I think, you know, it's really hard. We get better. There is hope. I'm not saying there's no hope, but I think we'll always, the streets will always be a part of us, whether we go to an apartment or sleep under a bridge. Unfortunately, I know it's not a real message of hope, but I do speaking with a Jan of Gladys Ray, and everybody pokes. How many people go to Gladys Ray and get an apartment and get a whole new life? I said, maybe 2 or 3 a year, and they go into shock. And they're like, what are they doing? I said, well, a lot of those guys die in their bunk or dying or, you know, out there drinking or in the hospital. And they're like, then what's the point? I said, well, you know, at least every night they got family and community and some dignity and some friends. And a lot of times you're up all night playing video games or watching Netflix, and they at least go to that bed with a smile on their face with some friends, and then there's a memorial afterwards. When there's drinking under the bridge and there's nowhere to go and nobody loves them, and you know, it kind of turns around the support on that, because I think unfortunately people in America think the recovery and the help for the homeless is this certain thing. My saying to people, if get a job was the solution, we would not have the epidemic problem in America that we have today. If it was as simple as get a job, we wouldn't have these problems. So, no.
Here I am 6 months later. Got my own place, got a job. Feels good to be independent. I've always been independent, but you know, everybody falls at least once in life. So now I'm just trying to figure out what's the next step. I mean, I'm just like kind of on level 1, working, paying rent, and then it's like there's that space for that little more of what I could do with my life. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. As far as other stuff, I have an interview next week at the Dorothy Day House, actually. I might be working there. That will be something that I was not expecting, but it's kind of like a, I don't know, a surprise that you know it's something that you need to do, it's something that is good for you. So hopefully I get that position, and from there I might figure out more of what I want to do. Aside from that, I'm just taking the time when I'm not working to just really, I've been really throwing myself into a lot of reading and researching as far as what I really want to do. I feel like that's the only way I'm going to really know what my passion is. I've always been a hands-on kind of a person, but reading and researching is in a way a hands-on for me. I kind of have ideas what I want to do, but I need to really be precise about it. So like for the Dorothy Day House, I feel like it would be a good way for me to go, because I know what I'm going to go into eventually is something that helps people. And I mean, working at a homeless shelter is something that of course is going to give me experience in that, but having stayed there and then working there, I feel like I can bring a different perspective to that work area. Also, I just I don't know, I think that's all I have for now, but yeah.
One of the questions that I got in October from at the Homeless and Hungry weekend one teenager asked me, well, what do we do if we see a homeless person? And my best advice to them was, talk to them. Don't treat them any differently than you would anybody else. Sometimes all they want is somebody to acknowledge them, to say, hi, how are you doing? You know, is there something I can do for you? You know, and the kids there, they had awesome questions, you know, and a lot of them were very attentive to it. You could feel the response and the energy that you were getting from these kids, you know, and the interest, you know, and to me that was touching. You know, I got a little emotional that day, you know, simply because the way they perceived it, the way they were receiving everything that was being told them. You know, they showed a genuine interest in it. And maybe some of that had to do with the fact that they kind of experienced it, you know, for a weekend themselves. But yeah, the kids, you know, that's where if we're gonna change the way the world looks at homelessness, we have to start with the kids.
Lord, I heard the angels sing on high. I'm weary and I've wondered how I long to see this Christ fold. Should I leave the flock behind to be silent and to wonder how I long to see this Christ? Will he walk upon this water? Will this water turn to wine? And for all his sons and daughters, and mine, for all his sons and daughters.